So today I'll be talking mainly about the environmental situations inside Tibet. I'm Tenzin. Our department, we have Department of Information and International Relations. So our desk, normally it deals with the environmental situations inside Tibet and also monitors the development activities inside Tibet. Whatever the Chinese they're saying, whether it's actually helping the local peoples on the ground or whether just for the sake of the international fame and saying that they're helping Tibet, they're doing that, doing this. So most of the time, it appears that whatever they're saying, whatever they're appearing in the newspaper is not actually happening on the ground. On the ground, it's totally a different story. So the same thing goes with the environmental situations also. So some of you might be wondering why we have the environment on one side and development on the other side. Because actually the environment and development, as far as I know, doesn't go together because actually it's mutually opposite. But here, development, we are basically concerned about the sustainable development inside Tibet, whether these developments brought about by Chinese, whether they are really inclusive in nature or whether they're just for the sake of development. So I would like to start my slide. So is it the slides are appearing as per my switch or because sometimes there are some time delays? Okay. Yeah. So as we know that Tibet is considered as the third pole. So basically the main reason behind considering this Tibet third pole is the unique location of the whole plateau, the Tibetan plateau. Actually, scientifically they are saying that the whole Hindu Kush range, Hindu Kush glacier is supposed to be the largest ice mass outside the plateau, the North Pole and South Pole. So what we consider is that since the Tibetan plateau, it encompasses more like 80 or 90% of the Hindu Kush glaciers, and in total they are saying they have around say more than 45,000 glaciers in Tibet. In Tibet, not TAR, but the whole three province. So I think first the audience must understand that because whenever I talk to media or some of my local Indian friends or maybe some journalists, whenever they hear the word Tibet, they automatically appears that Tibet is TAR. So whatever I am trying to say here, whatever I say Tibet, I mean to say Tibet, the whole three provinces, Rizam, Lote and Lome. So in total we have like 2.5 million square kilometers. So this Tibetan plateau, which contains all the three provinces, is also considered as the roof of the world. Or you can see this picture, if you can see it clearly. This picture was taken from NASA satellite. So this picture clearly shows how the plateau is uplifted from the entire Asian subcontinent. So they are saying approximately the average elevation of the plateau is around 4,500 meters above sea level. So this 4,500 meters is something that in some countries you won't even find the highest peak below 4,000 meters. So the average elevation of the Tibet as a whole is 4,500 meters above sea level. So that means this Tibetan plateau, as Tibet also considered as the roof of the world, has so far for over thousands of years have unique and very sensitive species, or I can say plants and animals. And if you can see from this slide also, you can see that the most of the Tibetan plateau, it has, in our knowledge, we have 15 different mountain ranges. So in this mountain range, you'll see this entire mountain range is the Himalayan range here. So in all, the Tibetan plateau is considered as the roof of the world. So the elder people, they also think that the Tibetan plateau is considered as Kangri Rabrekor, that means surrounded by glacial mountains. So this is just a quick introduction. And these days from this map, you can clearly see there's also another scenario to Tibetan plateau. which is considered as the water tower of Asia. So I think this map is clear in itself, so I don't need to explain much how important these river systems are, not only to Tibet, but to China and to the entire Southeast Asian countries, including India and Pakistan, of course. So we say we have 10 major river systems which has the source region connected on the Tibetan Plateau. So that's why it's also considered as the water tower of Asia. So coming back to the real point about the environmental degradations, I would like to first start from the deforestation. As some of you might be aware of the Yangtze flood in 1998. So Yangtze in Tibet, we call it as the Dichu River, one of the major rivers. So the Chinese researchers themselves admitted that this flood has occurred due to heavy deforestation activities during those times, back in 60s, 70s, and 80s. And as a result, there was a logging ban within this whole area. You can see this whole upper basin of Dichu Basin and other three rivers, most of the logging are banned. In 1999 or 1998, law was passed, but still you can see the effect. Now, if I may talk something about from the technical point of view, now most of the researchers, if you show this picture to a scientist, they will see that not only the forest is lost, but we have huge loss in terms of carbon sinks and loss of biomass activities. And if you can see the data clearly here, the forest cover in 1950 was 25 million hectares, and in 1985 it reduced to almost half, 13.5 million hectares. So all these loggings, what they did actually, they were actually shipped, or they were actually transported to China to burn the industrial furnaces. And now they have banned the logging. But still, you can see, this is a picture from 2012. You can still see that there is a mass or large-scale logging going on inside Tibet. So coming back to the initial statement that I made, whatever the government tries to policy, or maybe it's a propaganda, they're saying that they have increased the forested area and they have banned the mass logging. But if you see these pictures, it totally tells a different story. And I have another picture here. You can see at the backdrop, these are huge spurs or timbers. And this was especially from the upper region of Dichu or Yangtze. And this picture was taken in 2012. And we were lucky enough to get this picture from one of the pilgrims who came to Kalachakra initiation. So we got this picture from him. And as such, this is not an isolated event. So if I switch to another thing, resource extraction, if you can see it clearly here, can you see it clearly, this map?
Yeah.
Okay, so this map basically tells about the active mining sites inside Tibet. So this is what, as of we know, approximately they are saying like 200 active mining sites in Tibet, depending on whether it's a small scale or medium scale or large scale. So we have used Google Earth and we have plotted these maps. And most of these mines, if the audience are wondering, most of these are mining copper, because Tibetan Plateau as such, geographically and according to its geology, is considered very rich in copper deposits. And along with copper, they are also mining gold and silver and other minerals also. So if I may, because I would like to share this slide, because this slide, I came across this report 2 months back. And this report tells very clearly, if you can see here, that the Chinese government has so far discovered only 26 million tons of copper. And according to US Geological Survey, they said that they have estimated that the Tibetan Plateau contains 145 million tons of copper. So if you compare copper alone, if they were able to extract, they were able to exploit the whole copper belt, it would come around more than 250 billion US dollars. I've made a rough calculation according to the latest, the price of the melt copper per ton. So this is something that, in the name of development, if they are actually doing all these minings, so these mines works, they're actually, the question comes automatically whether these mines, they're actually employing the local peoples or not. So the percentage is very few, maybe 1%, maybe a truck driver or a waste manager. And as most of the audience, if they are well informed, they must heard about this Gamma landmine tragedy, which 83 people, most of these miners, due to the landslide. From this landslide, only 2 workers are Tibetan. Imagine that. So as such, in the future, this is, in the name of development, there's a huge, resources to be exploited. So if at all, we are not against any development activities, but in the name of exploiting these resources, if the local peoples are benefiting, then there is another story. But as of we heard, local peoples are not benefiting anything from there. And this is another picture of an Amdo area, where you can see if you don't have a good road, they will specifically make sure that a road is connected to the mining site. And this picture was given to us by some escapees from Tibet. And most of the villagers are worried about how many trucks they are passing each and every day. They are estimating around 50 trucks loaded with all these resources. And the local peoples are banned from going or visiting the mining site. And this picture was taken by a shepherd. And in the night, I don't have the clip here, because in the night, if you can see here, leachate and wastewater discharge. So what they do, this company particularly does is, in the night, around say like 10:30 or 11 in the evening, they will discharge the whole wastewater in the local stream. Because in the morning, if they try to do it, if the local peoples, they came to know about it, then they will protest. So they quietly discharge all the chemical waste in the river, especially which is supposed to be the drinking water source. So these are something that's actually happening on the ground. And if I may check this here, this is Namto. And the recent researchers, some Chinese researchers from Chinese Academy of Science, they found that this particular Namto basin, the south of Namto basin, contains a huge reservoir, or the percentage of rare earth element is much higher than what they've already found in Kokono or Jing'ai region. So this is something, in future they will exploit. And as you know, rare earth elements, when they exploit, compared with other mineral extraction, it uses a lot of water. So compared with China, the mainland China, if I may just quickly tell you about some important information. Inside Tibet, the per capita water consumption, or annually water capita allowance, is, they are roughly saying around 39,000 cubic meters per person. 39,000 cubic meters per person every year. Whereas if you go back to China, say like mainland China, in Beijing and Tianjin, they are roughly around 130 cubic meters per person per year. So this means that Tibet as a whole plateau is a huge resource. The water resource is abundant. So this could be this is one worry that we have. Like in future, most of the industries might shift inside Tibet due to the abundance of water. And as you know that in Inner Mongolian ore, they have newly found a huge reservoir of coals. So these are some of the problems that we have. And if some of you might have come across this research paper, it's very interesting. This says about the environmental impact of mining activities on the surface water quality in Tibet. So if somebody has read this paper, you'll find that due to the local water, the drinking water contains a huge content of heavy metals. And all these are due to the mining activities. And the concentration of heavy metal is much higher than the WHO standards. So I'll not go in detail, and this is the picture of the Gamma site, Gamma mining site. And these are the problems that people have faced earlier. And I think this picture we got it from Priscilla, from her blog. And alone in year 2012 alone, we have like 4 main protests, 3 main protests as we know. And in 2013, recently, there was a huge protest in Diru County in eastern Tibet. So when we tried to look back at the information, we found that earlier 2 or 3 researchers came to the village, and they are saying to the herders that we are here to build a power plant for the village so that the villagers could benefit. And later, I think somewhere around May or early May, a group of people came to check the samples. And afterwards, the people, when they know that actually they are planning to mine this area, and there was a huge upturn of local people. So you can see from the picture here, like they are around saying like 4,500 Tibetans, they showed up at the mining site. Because, and one good thing what the local people they did was they have also portrayed, they've also shown the pictures of Xi Jinping and Deng Xiaoping telling about how it's important to protect the environment and how every people has the right to protect the environment. So they have even used huge posters. But the miners are not concerned about any posters, what about the leaders are saying, because this is what actually happening on the ground. And the people, whenever the people try to protest, unlike the protests that you see in China, whatever protests which were do, especially on the environment side inside Tibet, they are directly politicized. And you'll see huge riot police and armies with heavy machine guns, machineries, to silence the crowd. So if this is the real state of development, then a big question mark comes for the policymakers, whoever making these policies, development policies. And if you can see this, here we have a huge success. This was in Kawakalpo in the Echen area, you can see the red dot here. So there was a gold mining exploit coming here. So what the local peoples were able to stop this mining activity. Because what they did was they came together and they took all the mining inventories, everything inside this water. And you can see here, this is the, and if you can read, I hope you can read surely, because these all are the pictures that we got. And you can see from this side, now they are trying to do mining on holy mountains also. And actually, basically, they are trying to mine iron ore in this area. So these are some pictures. Now, coming back to another very important resources, which is called the water resource. So if you can see from this the map, you can see the whole Asia map. Approximately, we try to, we have a geologist in our office earlier now, sorry, he left. So he said that the river basin area is approximately more than 6.5 million square kilometers. The river basin, the rivers that originate from Tibetan Plateau, it covers a river basin area of more than 6.5 million square kilometers. Now, if I quickly go by one river, this is Dichu, Yangtze, and this is goes through the Huanghe River. So both these two rivers, they approximately feed around 30%. 30% of the Chinese local drinking water source is met by these two rivers alone. This is Brahmaputra River, very important for India and Bangladesh. So the shaded portion is supposed to show the river basin areas. Now, a big question comes after all this. What if China or these engineers, they have tried to build dams on all these rivers? What will happen to the downstream countries? So this is the question which recently is a big worrisome for the Indian policymakers also. And unlike the other countries, there's, for example, if you go by, say, most common river in Southeast Asian countries, it is Mekong River, we call it Zachu. So this river alone benefits from poor fishermen to farmers. Like they are saying roughly 70 million farmers or fishermen, their life entirely dependent on this river, Mekong River. And this river, the head region of Mekong River is in Tibet. And there are plans for around 100 or 150 dams are being planned on this river. And in my other slide, you see like this is, for example, this is only in the Tibetan area. And this is the other river that we have from the western river, Brahmaputra. And this map is interesting because this map shows the seismic event like higher than 5 magnitude, which obviously it's a big concern for the hydro engineers or whoever tries to build that. So since 1973 to 2012, there have been so much seismic, which magnitude is saying like greater than 5. So in this fragile environment, with this alarming rate or with this huge seismic events occurring inside Tibetan Plateau, so who will build dam? What about the downstream countries if a dam break happens? So this is the question everybody needs to ask. Now another important is factors that happening related to also to human right and also to environment is the pastoral nomadism. or the nomads in Tibet. So these nomads, I'll go it quickly because like you can see this picture, this is the cultural or pastoral culture before 1950 or before 1940, before the Chinese came to Tibet. So this huge, the green shaded area is supposed to be the pastoral area where the nomads, they roam from all place, from one place to another. It has even occurred here in Ladakh also. They have certain part of Nepal and certain part of Bhutan also. And now they have restricted the mobility of the nomads. And different policies are passed. So I'll not go in detail about the mountain closure, the grassland policies. Now the latest policy is about restore grassland, abandon livestock and restore grassland. So we have also met some of the scientists who did some research in Tibet, and they found that actually grazing actually helps to maintain these grasslands, which the policy totally tells oppositely. The policy of this that was passed in 2003 is Tumei Homtao. I think it was I don't know how it's pronounced in Chinese, but it says that you have to abandon your livestock in order to restore the grassland. So that's the policy passed, and this is one of the latest policy which has been implemented on the abandoned grasslands. So from which excuses they have to remove the nomads, and they have first started removing nomads from these head region areas, these three main areas. For example, in Tsolu, Yushu, Tsolo, Tsojang, Ngolo, and Manu. They have tried a pilot test, and later onwards, they found that, there's a long story about the nomads removal and the policy, so I'll try to be as short as possible, because what we found that in 1949, when PLA army marched, Mao Zedong, his first aim was to consolidate, to have all the nomads in one place, in order to show his central command, because nomads, they are the wanderers, the pastoral wanderers. They don't have a fixed address. They move from summer pasture to autumn pasture to winter pasture to spring pasture. So this current policy restricts the mobility of the nomads, and they first started in this area, 6 areas. So these are the places where the nomads have been moved now. And these pictures we got it from Mr. Edi. He conducted a very interesting research in Tibet about the grasslands, and later I had an email communication with him, and in his dissertation he has mentioned that actually most of the grasslands are not that severely degraded, as what the Chinese are saying. These grasslands are not degraded at all. So you cannot conceptualize the degradation of a small piece of land and pass the policy without actually studying what's happening on the ground. So this is the biggest mistake the Chinese current policy makers are making. They are not visiting the site, they are just passing the policy directly from Beijing. And Nepal, if their plan is to remove the nomads and have them settled in these concrete ghettos, so this is a big question whether they are actually trying to restore the grassland, whether they are actually trying to secure the grassland. So these are some pictures. And opposite to that, if you can see this picture here, so can you see what's happening here? Can anybody tell me what's happening here? Because here you have nomads pasture, right? If they actually want to restore the pasture, if they actually want to protect the grassland, what's happening below here? A gold mining. So now it has become much easier for the mining industries to invest on these pastures because there are no nomads. Most of them are removed. This is also the same picture from Kamseta. Actually, this used to be a pastoral area. Now, if the policy plans to protect the grasslands, why are they allowing the miners to exploit? So this is a question one must ask. And on the other part here, the Tsongolpo, in the Mokru clan, what actually happened was all the nomads, they are removed, and they became more like a spectacle for the tourist. These small children, you can see, they are earning maybe 1 yuan or 2 yuan by taking pictures with the Chinese tourists. So this is all the main earning of them. They don't have livestock. They cannot practice the pastoral culture. They can't even visit the local holy lake because it's all only restricted for tourists. They have to buy a ticket to visit the holy lake, which they used from generations to pay respect to the holy lake. And these students are supposed to go to school. Why are they not in school? And why are they running after the Chinese tourists? So this is the state of some of the mobile nomadic clans. And the elders, they just sit idle, doing nothing. So if the actual plan of removing the nomads and to settle to the concrete ghetto is to develop them, because this is what the policy has been always telling that now. Actually, the pastoralists or the anthropologists say that the nomadic life is one of the most sophisticated lifestyle. Because if you want to live successfully on Tibet or on the Tibetan plateau with all these extreme climates, you have to live like nomads. You cannot live like tourists because these tourists are here for 1 or maximum 1 week. But these nomads have to stay there for the whole year round. So if you want to live successfully on Tibetan plateau, you have to act like nomads. So this nomadic culture has been very successfully thriving on the Tibetan plateau for the past 8,000 to 9,000 years. And suddenly one policy comes from Beijing and says that you cannot graze this grassland, you have to settle permanently on the concrete grassland. Okay, that's fine if they actually want to restore the grassland, but actually it is not a resettlement, it's more like a displacement from point A to point B. These nomads are not given training how to adapt to the modern lifestyle. They don't have, they are not given any crash course for workshops. They became unemployed. The next morning, the next day, they became unemployed. They own nothing. They have to sell their livestock very cheaply to some Chinese Muslims and Hui minorities. So this is what's actually happening for the nomadic culture. And now, coming back quickly to I think I have 10 minutes more. So coming back quickly to the climate change impacts. So I'll not go in detail because this is the latest data and information that we got. I think from some pictures you'll be very clear. This is about the glacial retreat, but how much the extent at which these glaciers are melting on Tibetan plateau. I would like to share this very old, in fact, 2005 information, which shows that the Himalayan glacier here is melting at one of the highest melting rates compared to other mountain ranges. So these all are due to the global warming impacts. So this is the picture that I have here. This is from India and this is from China. This is the soot particles. So this is the recent research from UNEP that mentioned that these all are due to the deposition of soot particles on the mountain glaciers. From India, you have these soot particles coming from Southeast Asia. They are affecting the Himalayan glaciers. The soot gets deposited on the glacier. It enhances the glacial retreat. And from China, we have all the soot particles coming due to industrialization and factories, coal-fired power plants. So they are all settling on the mountain ranges on the other side of Tibet. For example, like Amye, Machen and all, they're melting around. And this recent research that I found that was conducted by, I think this gentleman is from Chinese Academy of Science, and he did a very interesting research. He said that the one reason why this melting is due to the weakening of the Indian monsoon. He says due to that they have less precipitation on the Himalayan side and more precipitation and snow on the westerlies on the Karakoram side. So I thought, and due to this reason also, we have this shift in the erraticity of the Indian monsoon. So I'll not go detailed in these slides. I have here some interesting pictures. This picture was actually taken in 1921, and I hope some of you might have seen this picture. We got this picture from Royal Geographical Society, and this was taken in 2008. So if you compare these pictures, you'll see that almost 60 to 70% of the glaciers have already melted. Now this sends a huge alarming threat to the downstream countries. What will happen in future about our water resources? And due to this glacier melting, we have the formation of glacial lake. So I'm not going into detail about the glacial lake. This is also a glacial lake of Rangpo Glacial Lake, and this is what the glacial lake happened in Nepal. This is Imja Lake. So actually this lake did not exist in 1960. due to the meltdown of glacial lake, this whole lake, now this covers the 1 square kilometer in length, and at any time this lake could burst. Recently in India, we had a huge problem in Uttarakhand, and later on they found that this huge problem was more exacerbated by glacial lake outburst flood due to a Chonburi lake. So the same thing might happen. So these all are some very natural signals they are sending to downstream countries like what might happen. And now coming to another important point is permafrost. So this is something that most of the researchers have. This is some recent research. The Chinese have interestingly found about what's the permafrost, importance of permafrost on Tibetan Plateau. If you see this whole plateau as such, Tibetan Plateau or Tibet as a whole, you'll see that most of these areas are covered in permafrost and ground ice and seasonally frozen ground. And these are what's happening these days due to the degradation of permafrost. The ground ice is melting, so naturally it affects the whole vegetation. So if some of the audience they know about the grassland and the ground and the soil structures, it will be interesting, because what's happening actually in Tibet these days is you see the change in the surface soil temperature. The shift is like 152 and 230 days per year. That means in the morning it becomes too cold, in the afternoon it becomes too hot. There's a huge change in the surface temperature, which results in the degradation of all this permafrost. And it says like the active layer is also increasing. So you can see this is not a collection of rainwater. This is the ground ice melting. So with this now, the scientists have found that there is a positive feedback in which that these Tibetan grounds have hold billions of tons of carbons and methanes are trapped in these soils. Now, as a result of global warming, these soils and soil structures, they are loosening up. And in the process, they are emitting or they are injecting a lot of carbon dioxide and methane. So a lot of interesting research has been done on this subject. And they said that in future, they might, disturb the whole carbon balance of the Tibetan Plateau. And apart from global warming, that's a natural cause. And also we have human factors also. Like you can see this here. I think you can read it here. Because this sliding has actually occurred due to the renovation of the Selingl-Lhasa highway. This is what happened. This is very interesting. So we can see here, if you can see it clearly here, this is the natural surface, the temperature of the natural surface. And this is the temperature on the asphalt pavement. There's a huge difference between the temperature on the natural surface and the asphalt pavement, road construction. So this is what's happening on Tibet. Most of the highways, they have showing this effect. They have either bump on one side, they have a slope, this called retrogressive thermal something. So this is a problem with the highway, and the same problem might happen to the railway also. There's a big question. That's why they have this railway built on, especially engineering. The best engineers have used their brain to build these railway tracks. But still, a question comes like whether this railway track will last for another 3 to 5 decades or not. Because some of the research show that, because this is my argument, some of the research show that the temperature difference on the natural surface and the embankment, there's a huge difference in the temperature surface. So that means, every year, this railway track, either you have to renovate the railway track after every 5 or 6 years, or you have to face the consequence. So these are some questions that still need to be answered. And due to the permafrost degradation, also due to the desertification. So this desertification, in one sense, is responsible due to, now you know who's the biggest polluter. Number one is China, the biggest emitter of carbon dioxide. This is something that we have been looping. Earlier it used to be USA. Now you can see these are desertifications, some pictures that we got. This is the head region of Indus River. And this is the desertification at the head of Machu and Dichu. This is Yellow River and Yangtze. So most of the head regions, they are melting away. So I think this is this is a very important aspect in terms of the Tibetan Plateau. It's also considered as the rainmaker. Because what actually happens is, because I have some interesting literatures, I've met with some metallurgists and some geophysicists, and they mentioned that when the Tibetan Plateau heats up in the summer, it becomes like a heat pump. It absorbs all the moisture from this Bay of Bengal and South Asian countries. So this in turn moisture triggers the Indian monsoon or the Southeast Asian summer monsoon. So now the seasonality of monsoon is changing. That means Tibetan Plateau is not only the third pole, but is also considered as the rainmaker, because what's happening on the Tibetan Plateau affects almost the entire downstream countries. Because rainfall is very important, especially here in India. It's supposed to be, because we don't have a good irrigation system. So all the farmers, they have to wait for the rainfall. Now the farmers cannot predict when the next rainfall will come, because the seasonality is changing. So as of this year, in my hometown, Himachal Pradesh, is supposed to be, it's the orchard, The main produce is apple. So due to a heavy rainfall and erratic rainfall, most of the bamboo crops, they have failed. So these all, in a nutshell, what I'm trying to say is, the Tibetan Plateau is also acting as the biggest factor which contributes to the Asian monsoon, to the onset of Asian monsoon. So I think it's clear from here, this slide. And this is the Indian monsoon coming here, and this is the East Asian monsoon. So this Indian monsoon is weakening, and westerlies is increasing. So there will be a huge change in the entire system. So I'll not go in detail. I think this is one of my last slides now, 70 slides, my God. So lakes and wetlands. And most of the lakes and wetlands, they're also dry now. And this is one example that I think the Chinese, they are proud. And we are also happy that the municipality or the county, this is the Thalu wetland in Lhasa. So this wetland, they are maintaining it very good, maybe due to the tourist attraction or something, because wetlands play a very important role. It's more like it functions as a kidney. So these wetlands, so unlike this wetland, other wetlands, they are degrading. So something has to be done very quickly to save the Tibetan Plateau environmentally, because this is not benefiting the only 6 million Tibetans, but also the entire, they are saying that if you compare the water alone, they are saying that approximately 1.3 billion peoples, they are saying like 35 to 40% of the human population depend on the water laws that comes from Tibet. So there are some of my recommendations. Monitoring has to be done, very strictly monitoring has to be done, and mitigation, of course, and regional framework. Regional framework, I mean that most of the Southeast Asian countries and neighboring countries, they should come to a common ground, they should come to a common table and discuss how best to protect the Tibetan Plateau, especially about damming some international rivers and transboundary river issues. And the next is, we can request always, the UNFCCC Warsaw COP19, which is supposed to convene this November in Poland. So we can always request them to declare Tibetan Plateau in Himalayan region as a special environmental status, and to also protect the pastoral lands of Tibet. And my last request is to please support the local NGOs, and Dorothy your activities are really appreciated. So, because this is how we can create environmental awareness. So whatever I've mentioned here in these slides, they all have references. So if you'd like to go in detail about papers and all, I'll be happy to send all the papers if you're interested. Thank you so much. I hope I'm in time.